If you ever wanted to know what really happens at MediaCity, then this is the podcast for you. Hello and welcome to the first ever This is MediaCity podcast. Behind this wall here in our brand new studio is the one and only Peter Salmon, the man who brought the BBC to Salford. But before we meet Peter, let me tell you a bit about the podcast. This is a weekly podcast and we will be showcasing some of the amazing talent and people that call this place their home. My name's Stephen Chapman. I'm a producer, I'm a journalist, I'm also the founder and creative director of 39 Pictures, which is based just upstairs. And we're producing this on behalf of MediaCity and in partnership with the University of Salford. And it's their amazing graduates who are putting all of this together. So please like, subscribe, comment, share, whatever you need to do to make this podcast a massive success. So without any further delay, let's go and meet Peter Salmon. Now, your CV is the kind of thing that when I read it back, it makes me feel hugely inadequate. And what have I done with my life? I'm just
Makes
going.
me feel tired.
It's going to make me feel tired reading it out. Listen to this: top positions at Granada Television, Channel 4, controller BBC One, director BBC Sports, co-inventor Sport Relief. You can tell why I'm reading this. Commissioner for the likes of Dinner Ladies, Clocking Off, setting up BBC North and bringing thousands of BBC staff up here to MediaCity. Director BBC England, Director BBC Studios, Chief Creative Officer Endemol Shine Group, I'm almost there, and Executive Chair Banijay UK. And if you don't know Banijay UK, they're the superest of super indies, could we say? The monster behind Big Brother, Peaky Blinders, Survivor, Black Mirror, MasterChef. Would I lie to you as well?
All of those, yeah, Would I Lie to You, great show.
Okay. And you also discovered Wallace and Gromit. And we'll come on to that in a bit.
Yeah, I helped discover them, really. Yeah, I'm pleased to say.
Now, before we start on this proper, one of the things we've got is an icebreaker here, which is kind of to introduce you, to relax you. I think you're probably used to cameras by now, given your career. But we've got a little icebreaker, which is either or questions. And it's a case of pick a card, any card.
Thank you.
And hopefully one of them will be relevant.
Wonderful. Do you want me to read it or pass it to you,
I
Stephen?
don't mind if you've got two there.
No, sorry.
Go on.
I'll have to do two questions.
I'm gonna miss that one because his favourite lunchtime hangouts in MediaCity. Do you remember any of those?
Well, I'm a Wagamama's guy, probably. I do like the Dockyard, the pub. Very nice beer, Wainwright's favourite pint of Northern Bitter, but I probably shouldn't speak about that.
Since you were last here, there's a Greggs, which was the most exciting news in MediaCity.
I heard there was a petition to get the Greggs in. Well done.
Right, do you want to do one more?
Of course I do. Just the one. Back to you.
Ooh, okay. DVD or downloads?
Now.
Yeah.
Bit of both, probably. Yeah. I love tangible physical media. I'm a vinyl guy, but also, if I had to save one streaming service in a fire, it'd probably be Spotify. I probably because of my love of music and storytelling and podcasts and all the rest of it, it probably would be Spotify. Followed shortly by Netflix.
Of course, subscribe to This is MediaCity on Spotify, and there we are. I also want to ask you one other, I'm not sure if we had it on there. Best show you haven't produced? What's the show you're most jealous of?
Wow, that's a great question. What's the best show I never produced? There are lots and lots of shows I never produced that I love. I suppose, listen, I'm a big fan of things like Traitors. Or Severance on Apple TV, just to keep it kind of current. There are some great. This is a golden age of TV. People talk about golden ages of TV, but there've been lots of them. This is another one. There's some great content about,
and on so many different platforms as well. Yeah. Which comes to where we are now. Is this the first time you've been back at MediaCity since the BBC days? Or?
Yeah, it probably is in the last 6 months since I started a consultancy with Landsec, the new owners of MediaCity. Yeah, I've been coming back. It's been lovely because it's been a sort of, I felt slightly guilty about just returning as a nostalgic trip. I've got a lot of friends who work here and a lot of colleagues, and of course there's Man United's football ground and theatres here, but yeah, it's been wonderful to have the kind of license to come back and poke my nose into things that are going on, and see people and see if I can help things along too.
Because obviously you've got a very close tie to this place. So what is your role now?
I'm a media consultant with Landsec, the people who own MediaCity, who own Dock 10, who operate the studios here, but also have lots of other property interests around the UK. But when they got into the kind of studios business, they realised that the media wasn't particularly their strong point, their specialism. They do lots and lots of other things. They're enormous. But they said to me, will you advise a little bit? So that's been my pleasure and privilege for a few months to help out and just nudge them in the right direction.
And one of the things I think they're very keen on is a phrase I'm going to have to get you to explain, Media Plus.
Yeah, what I like about working with them, and listen, I'm a consultant, I'm not a staff member, I don't have to be nice to them, but you take as you find, as we say in the North, is that they've got a vision for things. They don't just want to own bits of property and then trade it on with a kind of monopoly board type transaction. They're keen to build up stories of places. Why would you live here? Why would you work here? What's it about? Where's it going? What will we do next? And they own lots and lots of things. But in the media space, they're quite keen to kind of understand, what is media? What's broadcast media? What's new media? And also who else is using media in a meaningful way? Whether that's, pharma, fashion, finance, sport, lots and lots of people are using media as an essential part of delivering a service to their customers and clients. So they're quite keen to see how some of those other and new and emerging and very powerful industries can complement the existing set of projects and organisations and entities which are currently working here at MediaCity. And we're just exploring the broader landscape at the moment, henceforth the term Media Plus.
Because the kind of the exciting thing about MediaCity, who people may not know who've not been here that much, is that it's not the BBC, just the BBC. It's not just ITV. The exciting stuff is happening in these micro startup, scale-up businesses, which I assume class as Media Plus.
Yeah, but they also class as new media as well. They probably fit into a number of these kind of categories. And you're right, there's a lot of people, one or two men and women bands, people with laptops, people who are intersecting with all sorts of design entities, with car companies, fashion businesses who are working in MediaCity. In fact, they're about to build and launch a new resource from next week, which I think we're going to talk about at some point, which is a new set of content studios here, which are these flexible new working spaces. And I think there's 500 people coming to a big event next week, when Landsec are launching this new idea right at the heart of MediaCity for little businesses, for businesses that need flexibility, businesses that need to find other entities like them to collaborate with. It's exciting. I think not since the launch of MediaCity has there been such a venture which could potentially catalyse so much new change.
You're talking about our home, our gas here,
in this place, in this
home
in this
MediaCity.
building,
Because this is MediaCity Studios. We're recording this before the launch. Yeah. It's going to air after the launch. In possibly, I don't know whether this is a podcast first, we're going to flash forward.
Time travel, you mean? So
exactly. So
you'll have a sonic screwdriver for fixing that microphone.
Let's hope it works. Welcome to the future. It says so on the lift. Disco lifts, that's the future. Okay, welcome to the launch of the new content studios. So good, they've even got content juice. Yeah. Brilliantly modelled there. Let's go and have a look at some of the studios down here. Now, in each of the studios, there is special things happening in each one. These guys here, including Thunderhawk and Immersive Eye, have got stuff going on here, including Moods, which are launching tonight, if you can come around here. This is rubbish if you're listening to this as a podcast. However, you should be also watching us on YouTube, and you'll see all the exciting things going on. Look at this. Anyway, let's go to the white room next door. And I'm going to jump in here. They're going to do photos, there's DJs, there's all sorts. Here, we got some of the great hip-hop dancers in here. And then we come to the main space, which is where the launch will be happening, but it'll also be a co-working space when this is over. And I think I've got 4 graduates hanging around on the table who are the guys that put together the This Is MediaCity podcast. these ones here, who are all very, very wishing they weren't in front of the camera right now, as you can tell from their awkward stance. However, while I have been doing this, I absolutely guarantee that Listhot would have been bending the ear of Peter Salmon and saying how brilliant the University of Salford is.
By the way, you've got a wonderful production team here who are made up of students from Salford University, which I've heard so many good things about Salford University recently, by the way, just the practical courses that people do, the brilliance of a lot of the lecturers and the people who lead the courses who are practitioners in the dark arts of making television and broadcast materials, who produce just amazing students. So you're very lucky to have them as your slaves here in this podcast studio.
Paid. Can I better point out that freelance staff. And the production we have on This Is Media City is by graduates of the University of Salford. We're active there, wholly invited into the space there, which is about helping, encouraging new businesses, but is also about helping and encouraging new talent to kind of make those contacts, which is so difficult to do in this world. And actually at Media City, if we can open more of the doors to get people in
it's such a good idea. There's so much about the future because there is a huge skills challenge piece that, if we think about growing the sector, regenerating the sector, doing all these new things here, who's going to do the work, as it were, who's doing the new jobs, who's got the skills? And I think a lot of it's going to be, these energetic, younger people with the new skills who are coming out of places like Salford Uni. So, big up, plug for Salford Uni.
And and it is fantastic that we can do that. And it is having that, it's, I suppose, back to your days when you were trying to encourage forcefully thousands of people to leave their comfy homes in London.
Big part of it. New skills were a massive part of it. The way it worked, just going back in time, doing our Doctor Who time travel bit is, a third of the workforce were people who were in Manchester in the northwest already, down in Oxford Road, who transferred up to Media City. A third were incomers, as it were, from the south of England, coming up with their jobs, which was great, business continuity and all of that great stuff. And then the third were completely new people. And that, the lot that came in to make that workforce 3,500 strong, the new lot were probably a bit younger, a bit fresher, a bit more digital. Probably challenged the old hierarchies, the old ways of doing things. It was the blend of the existing, grumpy, wonderful northerners who had that DNA in their system, and then the new lot from London who came up, hopefully, wanted to roll their sleeves, were making a success. Maybe a bit sceptical at first, but, overcame all that scepticism. And then all the new DNA that made it, I think, such a great place.
Let's rewind it even further, because at some point you presumably had to sell a muddy dockside empty spots in Salford to
the
London.
Senior leadership team.
How on earth do you, you must be a great salesman.
Well, we had a great vision, and we had great leadership in the BBC who got behind it, and then there were people like me who were kind of charged to deliver it, but we had some great people. But we also did I always remember, it wasn't a day like this. Today is a wonderful sunny day here in Salford, one of the rare January sunny days. I always remember we were in that huge circular room at the top of the Lowry Theatre, and we were overlooking this brownfield site that seemed to me to be just puddles, just the wasteland. And it had a few people drilling for something. There was quite a lot of toxic waste. I always remember this. There were quite a few people who just seemed to have left their cars there. It looked like a few kind of scrap yards. It was the old docks. It was extraordinary, as far as the eye could see. And there was Ship Canal. But I always remember there was driving sleet. It was coming from Liverpool. It was as though they'd been sent by the good folk of Liverpool down the Ship Canal. And I always remember looking out and saying to people, yeah, this is it. This is where it's going to be. And there were just a sort of, there was just a lot of people rubbing their chins and a few people going, crikey, under their breath and things. As I said, this is where it's going to be, and we're going to build these 3 buildings, and we're going to do all these things with our partners who were Peel at the time, which were great, full of energy. The government were behind it. Salford Council, Manchester maybe a bit more sceptical at that stage. But it was a big idea. It was a really big idea. I'm a great believer in big ideas. You're going to do it. You're going to make a change. Do it in a way which kind of ruptures things a bit. You make a noise. People have either got to believe or they don't believe. It's black and white. You say you're going to do it. You never hesitate. You never have any doubts yourself. You just think, we're going to do it. We're going to do it because we all say we're going to do it. We came up here and we signed the foundations, me and the leadership team, literally of one of the buildings in Dock House here. And we had a vision, and a strategy, and we stuck by it. Had a great leadership team, and then we had a lot of fun. We just decided it was going to have to be noisy and fun, and we were going to have to, get the locals on side, employ local people, build a great apprenticeship scheme, have wonderful relationships with Salford University. We were very open and open-minded to the region we were moving into, to the area we were moving into, and it was incredibly good fun. We then had other interesting things like the 2012 Olympics to deliver, which was of course down in London. So a lot of noise
Good timing.
A lot of noise about where we're moving up with BBC Sport at the time when we were delivering the London 2012 Olympics. But we did it, and we couldn't have done it without the digital infrastructure in that, in Key House and here at Dock 10 and things. It was deliberately planned to be able to service all that live streaming from the London Olympics. I remember on the first day, all the streams came on. I was in a room on the second or third floor in Key House, just looking to see if the streaming, as it were, then would survive the demand on the capacity, and it did. I remember wiping my forehead and thinking, my God, we've survived our first big capacity test. So lots of kind of milestones we hit, lots of great people, and that's kind of what brought me back. It was kind of a sense of that mission was important, we were changing things, so what can we do now?
It was also because I was a journalist at this time,
Yeah.
and I pretty much had your head of comms on speed dial.
Poor thing.
Because every day there was a headline, and these were front page headlines, weren't they, about how you'll never get the PM on the couch in Salford. Why would they come here? When Salford opened up, I think they must have rung up the switchboard and said, nowadays we can't even understand the switchboard because they're all northern, and they were going through listening to 5 Live going, oh, it's all about Salford,
changed.
it's traffic from Salford, where's stuff about London, which is obviously the whole point. But it was, I mean, it must have been you sound like you had fun, but it must have been a constant battle fighting the negativity about northern England.
Yeah, but it was a good fight. It was a just fight. It's always great when you've got a mission and you feel you're doing the right thing with the right people. It was about representing a region of 15 million people who had been inadequately represented by the BBC. Couldn't access the BBC for jobs, didn't feel they could hear their voices on the BBC, didn't feel they saw themselves on the telly. All the rest of the BBC's appreciation in the north of England was very low then. This was a ITV stronghold. My job, obviously, representing the BBC, was to kind of turn that around. In the time we were here, we turned all that around. Our ratings in the north of England, and by the way, we didn't lose it in the south. Our ratings in the north of England for those services and the broader BBC overtook ITV's for the first time. That was an incredible achievement, and that's because we delivered a lot of new content. It was still high quality, but it kind of sounded and felt a bit different. We took the BBC on the road to, this was BBC North. We took it to Gateshead and Newcastle and Blackpool and the Lake District and Carlisle and Leeds and all of Yorkshire and, Liverpool. Love Liverpool. So it was about taking the BBC out to the people who paid for it and making them feel the love and feel a connection. And through the likes of, Blue Peter and BBC Music and BBC Sport and Radio 5 Live doing wonderful events and all sorts of things. We put ourselves closer to the communities who paid the licence fee. But it was done in the teeth of, listen, the BBC's got a lot of naysayers, they currently have as well. It's just the way it is. The press here are not kind on it, to each other. And inevitably they're not particularly kind to the BBC for all sorts of reasons we don't fully understand. So inevitably they didn't wish it well particularly, but I think we overcame that hostility in time, but by not being reckless about the sound and the feel and the look of things. We kept some things the same, and we gradually, systematically, changed them and evolved them. But we didn't move here kind of recklessly and suddenly all become northern or all hate London or any of that stupid stuff. I used to say to my leaders here, a couple of people said to me, oh, it's great, I won't have to go to London anymore and see those people in London for things. And I used to say to them, no, you need to go to London more now. You need to go to London more. There's more to fight for. You need to be in all those conversations in London and bring all the good stuff back here, as it were. Fight the good fight for this new place in London. The worst thing you can do is be an ostrich and put up the drawbridges and close yourself off from the bigger agenda and the bigger picture. So we fought really hard to make this place vibrant and collaborative, and to really put it on the map here in Salford. And that's what I find when I come back today.
Your enthusiasm, I remember, was infectious in a way, because I think the first time we met this was a building site.
Yeah.
And we jumped in a car. You sat in the back and were telling me all about everything. And then I had to get a hard hat and high vis on, and we went up, I presume, to the top of Dock House on an external lift, because obviously it wasn't there. And you said, that's the purple carpet. And there was just one single square of carpet. And then we went back down in the lift again.
The rest is on order. Yeah.
And it was kind of, okay, right, okay, he loves this
place.
Well,
we were grateful for small things. It's a weird thing to say, when the Holiday Inn opened here, it probably doesn't seem very much to people now, or the Costa or whatever. We virtually threw a street party. We were just grateful that other entities, commercial entities, other broadcasters. God, when Coronation Street opened, we used to be up on the 5th floor of a key house overlooking the Ship Canal, and we looked down on them starting the work on ITV over there, and it was the biggest party we ever had. We just felt like the reinforcements had come, the cavalry, because we always said, this place is too big just for the BBC. It's for more than the BBC. The BBC's money, the BBC impact, the reverberations, the collaborations, the partnerships. Given the size of this, it's got to mean much more than just the BBC in terms of jobs, representation, storytellers, storytelling. And when ITV turned up, it was a big moment. And then, of course, lots and lots of other entities who thought, wow, the BBC and ITV sort of joining forces at MediaCity. This has got to be something. And it then built its own momentum.
Do you think we shout about it enough now? Because back then we were trying to push it, fight it. It was constantly, is MTV coming up? And there were all this excitement and, wow, is this happening? Is that happening? Yeah. Do you think not only us as MediaCity, but also the wider world has gone, MediaCity's there, tick?
Yeah, I do. I think, after a certain amount of time, you can become, you can be taken for granted, or you can take the special nature of what you do, or your amazing content for granted. Yeah, I think it's gone a little quiet, or it's become a little modest about how exceptional and unique the place is in terms of all these entities in a media city. There isn't another one in the UK. There aren't many in the world. They're quite special places because all of these things, students, R&D people who make music, people who do sport, people who do entertainment, lots of people who make children's, people who do learning, lots of software developers, designers, people who do UXB, all the rest of it. They're all here cheek by jowl, all in the same sandwich queue, all, at the same Pret, all at Greg's, all in the bar, whatever it might be. And it's those adjacencies, that bringing of things together and the great things that happen as a consequence, which are so special about these places. And I think if you're not careful, you end up thinking, the world, we don't need to do the marketing now so much. Let's not look like we're bragging. People are having a bad time out there. But I think it's just the time when you need to say to people, come on, be proud of the thing you've got in your midst. Come and join us. Look how special this is. It will be even more special if you're a part of it. I think that's a big challenge. And, the world got more complex, got noisier, Manchester rose, and rose and rose. I mean, alongside Salford, where we are now, these sort of twin cities, which are really just, the greater Manchester conurbation. But, I've also been dazzled and struck by the extraordinary energy of Manchester in the meantime. I used to be on the board of the Manchester International Festival, MIF. So I always had amazing relationships with Manchester, and we did wonderful things on this site and in Manchester. But now I see the Aviva studios, I see Co-op Live, I see Castle Field, I look at what they're going to do at Man United, look at the growth of Man City as a brand, I see the skyscrapers. I think it's an inspiration if you're here to sort of, as it were, match up to that, match their energy, get alongside them, be a part of that cluster. And I think you've got to work even harder to do that when you've got such a noisy, energetic neighbour.
Yeah, I suppose that therefore is kind of why you're back in a way, to be a bit noisier, or help us be a bit noisier.
Yeah, listen, I'm a consultant. I'm not, I can be helpful, but actually there's a great team here. And the thing I've noticed about Land Security is, again, I'm working for them part time. That my career is not dependent on them, but is they've got ambition and energy, and the management team want it, and they want to shout about it, and it's given them a sense of renewed purpose. The people who started it, brought this incredible initial energy and pride to it, and then at some point, like all good sports events, the baton gets passed to another party in the same way that people took over from me at the BBC. There are new owners here now, and they've brought new momentum. They're bringing new investment. They've got new ideas. They're opening these new content studios. Why? Because they recognise that energy, that fizz, that enthusiasm, that uniqueness. If you want to sell flats, or you want people to come and work in the retail sector or open restaurants here and all the rest of it, they want to feel the buzz. They want to see the shows. They want to hear about the innovation. And it's all of that that ripples out and creates a community that people eat in and walk around and run around and shop in and work in. That buzz is incredibly important, but you do have to work at it. It doesn't just land of its own accord.
When you stood there in the Lowry overlooking this windswept, post-apocalyptic place, did you imagine anything like this in your mind, or?
Yeah, funnily enough, I think I was always very inspired by the journey on the crane at the end of the external to the buildings with the hard hats, looking at the scale and size of it. I knew it was big. I knew it was a sort of game changer. I knew it would rupture things and be noisy, even if it failed spectacularly. But I always imagined it would have a scale, and that when you throw a big stone like this into the pond, it's there's a big splash and the ripples go out, and it makes connections. Yeah, I always felt it. I think it could be bigger, and I think what they're doing there in Road in Trafford with Man United, what's happening in Manchester with all the tech companies, the sense of global which I find in the northwest and Manchester and the greater Manchester area now, I think all that's part of this story. I think that's what's going to take it further and make it bigger over the next few years. I mean, the wonderful thing is it's both kind of familiar to me, but strangely different too. A lot of the young lieutenants who join with me are now kind of running the place, and I bump into them and I say, well, what, you're still here? They go, what, you're still here? And we talk to each other, and I realise they're running the shop, and they've got great values and great energy, and they're very proud of the place and want to see it go on and do greater things.
You sound really excited about this.
I am excited about it, yeah, because I feel like I'm renewing my sort of vows to make sure this place goes on to be an even bigger success. I was phase 1, and now someone's asked me to come back and poke my oar into phase 2. But I think phase 2 is going to be amazing.
I have to ask you, because we said at the start we were going to talk about it later, and then we just went off and talked about other stuff. Wallace and Gromit.
Wallace and Gromit. Very northern, by the way.
Exactly. It sounds
made in
to
Bristol.
It sounded to me when I think it was written on one of your bikes, so you discovered them, which sounded to me like you were hanging around in Bristol and found another northerner.
It is a great story because I worked with a wonderful company. I was running BBC Bristol. I was making documentaries, and I went to BBC Bristol to do environmental programmes. I stayed on, and I always liked this kind of out of London challenge of growing culture and programme making in these places. And Bristol was amazing and is amazing. And I came across the studios called Aardman Animation. They were quite small. They did a little desktop plasticine figurine called Morph. David Sproxton and Peter Lord. They had a wonderful, wonderful student animator called Nick Park, who'd just come through the ranks of the National Film and Television School. And I persuaded the guy who ran BBC Two, Alan Yentob, to give me some money to Channel 4 were going to take them in. And I said, no, they should be on the BBC. They're extraordinary. This guy's amazing, doesn't like anything else. It's of such high quality. I'd seen little elements of things that he'd done before. I'd seen his first student film. And I persuaded him to give me some money to fund that initial development of Wallace and Gromit, and the rest is history. The first one went on to win an Oscar, and it was it's a source of great pride, as it is whenever you discover, it was only discovery and then promotion of great talent. And he's a Preston boy, and I've been back to Preston with Nick, and I see there's now a statue to him, Nick Park, outside Preston Market. So, long live Wallace and Gromit.
And another thing about the Northwest all coming together, isn't it?
Another thing, alongside the football and MediaCity. Yeah.
Peter, thank you ever so much for your time. I know you've got loads of other commitments on the short time you're up at MediaCity today, so thanks ever so much for being our first guest on This is MediaCity. We're going to run this every single week, so please subscribe, comment, get in touch if you want to be on the podcast, and you can get in touch by emailing. This is MediaCity at 39pictures.com, and we want to hear anything, whether it's you want to be a guest, you want to take part in another way, or you want to come and put an advert on the show. We'll be here next week. Future, backwards, we're all over the place, haven't we? And we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much again, Peter. This is MediaCity is a 39 Pictures production on behalf of MediaCity and in partnership with the University of Salford. The production team are Meg Bond, Tegan Easton, Akila Hewitt, James Young and Amelia Husselby.